Well, from the Beastie Boys to Eminem to Nicki Minaj, there have been famous rappers who are not young black males, of course. But while Asian Americans have reached the top in many aspects of our culture and economy, you don't normally think of them when you think of hip-hop artists. Well, that's what the documentary Bad Rap is all about. And we'll meet the director and co-producer in a moment. But first, check out the trailer.
Out of 100 rappers, there's like 5 Asian American rappers.
There aren't many Asian rappers doing it.
You'll hear Asian rappers that sound Asian.
What's this whole business about sounding black?
Dude, it's so frustrating. Aquafina has a booking agent. I've been trying to do that for like the last 5 years.
A cute Asian girl who has like catchy hipster songs, like you know how to sell that.
It's like the hip-hop elitists that want to tear me down because like they're not used to seeing a little diminutive Asian girl.
There's nothing better than being underestimated.
You never see an Asian that's really being innovative ever complain about how unfair it is.
Like I'm Superman.
I'm not just a rapper, I'm an activist.
They expect us to be that minority.
We need that champion. We need to be better than everybody.
I don't think that I'm a spokesperson for Asian Americans at all, but I think that when I'm out there, I'm representing them.
Stereotype, you know, what you expect. This is who I am.
Mama had a dream, but she gave it up to me. And my sister raising kids, man, that ain't a cup of tea. Now she ain't had no cheese.
I know it's the music because everything else, dude, I could hold down, bro.
I watched Dumbfounded for years. I'm a huge fan. To see him come back and just bless us with his presence at this event is insane.
You got to get out here and rock these shows. Move around and tour and go see people on their turf. Yo, that shit was dope. That shit was dope.
A lot of those cats would love to be in my position, so I can't take this for granted.
Tell me, mama, are we there yet? Mama, are we there yet?
Well, Bad Rap had its world premiere at the 2016 Tribeca Film Festival, and it's being screened all over the place right now, from New York to San Diego to Seoul, Korea. But right now, let's meet one of the filmmakers, director, and co-producer, Salima Koroma, whose family, by the way, comes from Sierra Leone. Hey, it's a show about immigration, right?
How did you know that?
Listen, we have a crack research team that gets to the goods. No, but a girl from Sierra Leone who I'm going to assume who has parentage, the roots of Sierra Leone.
Right.
But I assume, are you a big hip-hop head?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up, my dad used to listen to a lot of reggae.
Okay.
A lot of African music.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up on.
Yeah.
But of course, that was at home, right? And so you sort of live sort of a different kind of lifestyle at home than you do at school.
Gotcha.
Right? You go to school, people listen to hip hop. That's what I grew up on. So I sort of have the best of both worlds.
So you go from being the girl who grew up on the reggae, the house cleaning music, you go to school, you found hip-hop, and then you went even deeper in to look for a subset of hip-hop, like we said in the intro, that doesn't get a lot of play. Asian American rappers.
Well, it's actually interesting because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my household and how we just listen to different kinds of music. I listen to, French music, Korean pop, and that's really where it started. I was a fan of Korean pop, and I wanted to do a documentary. For my thesis about Korean pop artists who were actually from the U.S. who went over to Korea, right?
Gotcha.
And that world is just very. You really can't crack that world.
K-pop is a lot.
But I still wanted to talk about something that had to do with identity and music, right? So I got on the phone with, at the time I didn't know him, he's now my co-producer, J.K. Cho, who was a writer for XXL Magazine, which is a hip-hop magazine, which featured, he had done a feature about a K-pop artist. And the more we started talking, he loves hip-hop, he's actually born in Korea, and I love hip-hop, and we just started talking about like gender. As a woman, what can you do in hip-hop and what can't you do? As a white guy, what can you do and what can't you do? And then we just started talking about Asian Americans and how nobody ever talks about it, but there's so much to talk about when it comes to Asian Americans in hip hop.
So I'm just, for a second, I got caught on the fact that you were a K-pop fan.
I love K-pop.
So I could imagine if you walked into the arena right now, you would be like the one chocolate chip in the cookie in the K-pop experience.
Well, you know, that's what is so interesting is that you go to K-pop shows here in the U.S. because a lot of them come, they do shows here now. There's so many black girls, black guys, white girls, white. I mean, it's just so different from what it was, I would say, 10 years ago, right? So I am not as special as I would like to be in the K-pop world.
But I'm thinking, if you walk into the office and say, you know what, I have this great idea. If you said, oh, I want to follow Nas around for a year, or I want to get this grimy boy from the projects who's rising up, then okay. But what is your elevator pitch that you made to say, hey, look at me, I want to do something about Asian American hip hop artists?
I think that's a great question, and you are right. Sometimes I'll start a new job or I'll do something and they'll say, this is Salima, she's a filmmaker, she loves K-pop, and everybody just likes to laugh, or they sort of think of that as kind of different. And a lot of times, J.K. Cho, who's my co-producer, he's a lot of people think he's the one who was the director. He started the idea. How did she get into it? So I do get asked a lot of questions. I get asked a lot of questions about appropriation and how do I feel as a black woman and Asian Americans doing something that's rooted in black culture. I get asked these questions all the time, and sometimes it's hard for me to talk about because. There are no answers, right? We're just discussing, but people want hard and fast answers, and I think that's a bit difficult to do.
So do those questions ever come from Asians or Asian American people about your view on the thing? Since you're looking at us and you've got the lens, what do you think about the way that we freak it?
That's another great question. Wow. This is what you do. After screenings, I mean, there are a lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, there are a few times where, black audience members will ask me, why are you okay with this? Why are you okay with Asian Americans doing hip hop? Are you selling out, right? And these are questions that, they're hurtful because I'm a filmmaker and I want to explore, and I'm not trying to push an agenda. I think that it's important for people of color to tell stories about people of color. Gotcha. And I learned so much doing this. I just want this to be an experience where people can watch it and say, whoa, I did not know this was happening. I didn't know the struggles that Asian Americans have to go through within hip hop. Like, I just want people to come out of the theater or come out of watching it feeling like, wow, I did not know that.
So clue us into some of those struggles, because we got a nice little capsule from the trailer, but what are some of the things that people do have to face on the come up, whether it is like Awkwafina with a female MC or someone who is just like, I'm just grinding, I'm trying to get to where she is even.
Right. Well, I think the one thing that I wanted to make a point about making this a story about Asian Americans, right? And these are people who they grew up on hip hop just like I do. They probably know more about hip hop than I do.
Some do.
They're always invalidated, right? So they're always asked the question, what do you know about hip hop? Why do you need to be part of hip hop?
Gotcha.
You live a great life.
Right.
They're
Model minority status.
The model minority status, right? So those are things that they have to deal with. And I think this was an exploration of that, and I think that they get frustrated because they're like, I'm not an immigrant. I don't know. I can't just go to Korea and go rap. I can't even speak Korean. Like, this is what I grew up. I'm not trying to be black. I'm just trying to be creative. Yeah. And so, I think there's a lot of frustration and navigating there, and just the idea that hip hop. When you think of what hip hop is, I guess stereotypically, it's one, it's male, right? It's aggressive. Right. It's the streets. And Asian American men specifically, and women too, are not considered, that. They're docile, right? So how do you have Asian Americans who are almost the antithesis of hip hop, right? How do you meld those two things together? Yeah. That's what this is exploring.
So speaking of that melding, last week we had a guy who was running the Korean American Film Festival here, and he spoke about this concept of what you said. I'm not Asian, and I'm American, not Asian from Asia,
right,
and American. So there's these two cultures at play in me. And he had this concept of this third culture, where he's like Asian American, American Asian, and a third culture thing where you're melding all those things together. So what credence do you give to that? Is that like
absolutely
third culture as a filmmaker and an immigrant or a rapper?
Absolutely. You know, I go to Africa sometimes. I go to Sierra Leone to go see my family, and I'm considered an American, right? I'm not considered African, right? When I grew up, I was considered African here in the U.S. So it's sort of like you don't, you've heard this, you don't really fit into either of those things. So you have to sort of meld those things together and live your own third life, right? And but I also think that there's a lot of us. There's a lot of, and I'm meeting a lot of people like that, Jay Key and all these artists that I interviewed and worked with for these past few years. You know, it's not hard anymore because
we've seen the numbers.
We've seen it. It's happening, right? So it's actually kind of like it. I think it's cool.
So what's next? The dreaded question. It's
dreaded question.
I know you're in the victory lap. You got your film plan from New York to Seoul, but are you going to do something that delves into the immigrant experience again?
I don't know about the immigrant experience because this is not what this was. It was a lot more about the identity and telling a story about hip hop that we haven't told before, and in a way that is universal, because a lot of people can say Asian rappers, I don't care about that, right? But it's not just a story about Asian rappers. It's a story about, you know, trying to be part of something and being told that you can't, and fighting to be part of that, right? And that's something that is almost sort of universal. So what's next is I want to continue telling stories about people, Black women, you know, communities that we don't talk about their issues. I don't want to, you know, not to get too, you know.
No, please.
Right?
This is the place for it.
But I think that there are a lot of, like, I was just watching Insecure on HBO, which I was just like, whoa, that's my experience. Nobody's ever done this before. Why is that? And so I want to be part of that, is telling those stories.
Narrative?
Narrative? Absolutely, absolutely. I still get, you know, people hit me up all the time and they say, I have this hip-hop doc for you to do. And I go, okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it. But I do want to delve into narratives. I still love documentary, love music videos, love doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, narrative.
All right, so before you get out of here, tell us again how we can see your movie.
Okay, so if you go on our Facebook page, facebook.com/badrapfilm, all our handles are at badrapfilm. We have our tour poster, which we're going to be screening everywhere. And then we have some big announcements coming up for how everybody can watch the film. I'll tell you.
It's just us. You can drop it right now.
I will.
Well, Salima Koroma, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And you can go check out the film Bad Rap.
Bad Rap. Badrapfilm.com.
There it is.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.